It's the No Last Race podcast with Mick and Louie, brought to you by Te Akau, New Zealand's champion racing stable.
Welcome back into No Last Race, the Boys Get Paid podcast with Mick Guerin, Michael Guerin across the table from me, and myself, Louie Herman-Watt. Sorry, Mick, and Toby. Toby
runs the show.
Hitting the buttons, switching the cameras for us. Brought to you by Te Akau Racing. They provide us with the finance to be here, looking at each other's eyes. Do I sound flat?
And let's be honest, you're flat because yesterday, and let's get it out of the way nice and early.
Let's present it.
It's the ugly girl at the dance. The Boys Get Paid got kicked in the butt yesterday.
And the teeth.
Punting.
Yeah, look.
How much did you lose?
We're coming to $115,000.
Okay. It wasn't just your money.
No, I don't have finance to that. Look, we'll get it out of the way because I feel it in my voice, and I don't want people to be sitting.
How many people were involved?
900 people.
Okay, so more or less $120 each on average.
Yeah, about there. Look, it's less about the money. It's more about the fact that we tried really hard. We had a lot of different people. We've done it before. We've had success before, and unfortunately, it didn't go well. We haven't done a punters club, so that was yesterday. We're coming at you the day after Melbourne Cup, and I thought we'd catch up, Mick, and we'd have a look at the Melbourne Cup. We'd preview because racing gets really hot at this time of year. But yeah, that was yesterday. So if I look and sound a bit dejected, I'm not really beaten up.
Yeah.
But I can't help feel.
Look, it's always harder losing other people's money. Look, if I have a grand each way on something and it gets beat, well, that's just life.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a dumb bet. But if I'm sitting with a couple at the races and they have $20 on it and they get beat, I feel worse about their $20 than I do about my $2,000.
Yeah.
I just feel terrible.
Yeah.
Particularly on the Melbourne Cup, because everybody texts you and expects you to know it's going to win the Melbourne Cup because you talk about horse racing year in, year out. But when a $30 chance wins, that means the market gave it a 3.5% chance of winning. So that means it had 96.5% chance of not winning. Anybody who's going to punt long term, anybody who's any good at it, and I know most of the people who are pretty good at it in New Zealand and a lot in Australia, you've got to have that moment. The lock, stock and two smoking barrels moment where the train just goes through your stomach and you're like, fuck, what happened there?
Yeah.
And until you've had it 3 or 4 times, you don't learn anything because it's like getting punched in the face in the pub for having a big mouth. Once you get punched in the face a couple of times, you think, I should shut them.
I'll rein it in.
And punting's like that because people say to me all the time, because New Zealanders aren't taught to do this, well, why would you split bet in 2 races? Or what sort of weakling are you? Why would you back 2 horses? Or why would you cover? It's because making money's the name of the game. And yesterday, your boys got kicked in the arse. It's a tough day to punt. You'll bounce back. But look, the most important thing you do is sit down, and to anybody listening to this or watching it, if you have a losing day on the punt, I'm not talking losing 2 bets. If you go to Ellerslie and you shoot off 1,000, if that's a lot of money, you're going to say, so what did I do wrong? Did I do that wrong? Was I imagining something? Did I listen to an idiot? Did I listen to a tipping machine, trainers who tip every horse in every race? If you didn't do anything wrong and you just got beat, that's fine.
And that will happen.
That's fine. If you'd made stupid mistakes, and yesterday you boys backed Surprise Baby, I wouldn't have backed it if I wrote it at 0. And yet, ironically, I thought Tiger Moth was a 22% chance of winning the race. So it's going to happen to everybody, and that's why the game's fun. But you just try and learn something from getting your ass kicked.
And we will. And look, I would just love to say thanks on behalf of Luke, Ben, all us at Boys Get Paid. Thank you for being involved. Thanks for getting involved in this Punters Club. We will be back and we will do another one.
We don't lose any skin over it.
We won't lose skin over it. We won't lose
people
sleep over it.
$120 each.
That's right.
The boys and girls watching this show, they can cop that.
A lot of what we do is it's about building the industry up and promoting it. And look, I feel like we got our funds worth, we got our money's worth in kind of enjoyment factor. Being around each other, screaming them on. Unfortunately, when the first one for the day misses the kick and then you lose, and then it just slowly slips. Yeah. Ingratiating.
You were really stiff with Gino Severini. He rode the ears off it at the 600. He didn't need to. He just could have sat there and he would have been fine.
Just niggly stuff, but that's all right. We'll move on, and that's what we're here to do today. So what are we going to talk about, Mick? Well, we've got the Te Akau's Treasures coming up later in the show. We've got hell of a race. It's Guineas week.
It's Cup week in Christchurch.
There's
a lot going on there.
I've got in my rundown punting sadness, but I think we've done that. I think we did that at the top. So
don't worry, there's plenty more punting sadness to come over the summer.
Yeah, that's right. This will not be the last time we'll get our ass handed to us. There's so much news going on. So, again, thanks to Te Akau for kind of getting involved, and huge week for them, Melody Bell and the Mackinnon unfinished business. I think they're going around saying, which is, cool. I love that. Bit of drama. And need I say more, Guineas favourite. So let's kick in, though. Let's rip in. Yesterday was the Melbourne Cup, and so we're sitting here pretty much in the aftermath. Quite an incredible victory. I've got it here on the screen. I'm going to play the last wee bit, Mick, but just for the race and as a Melbourne Cup, you've seen a few of these. You didn't have a bet into the race?
I had a fun trifecta with the wife just because she wanted to have a trifecta in the race. Remarkable performance. They've gone 3:17 and change here, and look, he's basically made all the running himself. He's had to come from barrier 10 or 11, so he's had to work across them.
Can I just ask, could you mark Twilight Payment as one that you would be watching it with interest?
No, I thought Master of Reality, who's the stablemate, was a better horse because he led last year and went too slow, the horse in front here. But look, it's a remarkable performance because if a $7 chance did this, people would say, what was a champion? He's an amazing horse.
Yeah.
As good as he was, and he was awfully, awfully good, as you look at this, I think the run of the race is the second horse, who's in third spot at the moment, Tiger Moth. Outside of him is the Chosen One. Outside of him, Russian Camelot. Back in the field, we've seen Very Elegant rolling home really, really strongly. Look, there's a lot to like about her. There's a lot to like about Persian, or Perzan, whatever they call it. The Chosen One's stayed by 3 Europeans.
But did you just about 50 metres ago, he looms up like, hold on, did you have a moment?
He had a chance to win. I yelled at the TV because I would love to have seen Andrew Murray win the race. And Prince of Aaron's obviously been stiff, but he didn't work early, but he's gone super. But just on the winner, hell of a performance. You've had to make all the running, and 3:17's a quick time. That's super, super quick. He's obviously, they found a different way to train him, and John McNeil, Joseph O'Brien spent a lot of time on the phone teaching him how to ride him like a European horse and not to ease up and not do what you would usually do here. But the run of the race, a lot of people were saying Prince of Aaron was the run of the race afterwards. The run of the race was the second horse. He wasn't.
Tiger, and this was his fifth start, right?
Well, if you ever go back and watch the race, watch the first 1200, Kieran McAvoy's actually into him because he was. Usually they jump and you can get across them relatively easy. There was like 10 or 12 across the track. And he's actually into him. Like usually they come down the straight holding them, looking for position. He's actually into him. He's riding him to get across. Now, he got across before the post, but he had to really work down the straight. He wouldn't have had a clue what was going on because he's never had to work like that in a race before. And then he's ended up just losing contact. And Kieran got done for the whip, which would suggest to me the horse wasn't getting tired at the 600. It just didn't know what to do. It got there. It was probably in a zone it had never been in before. And it's like, what am I doing? And then Kieran's had to get into it. And that's why it's come again. Now, I think there's every chance the horse could have won if it had 3 or 4 more starts. But then again, 3 or 4 more starts.
Or a better draw.
Gets it more weight. If it draws 1 to 10, it has won the Melbourne Cup. Absolutely certain.
Wow.
That's not for negotiation. That's just a fact of life.
Just looking at how much you had to give there after getting worked early.
Well, as I said, if you watch the race and forget Prince of Aaron flying home, because he was very good, but he didn't work early. You watch him, he works down the straight. I don't think I've ever seen a horse work that hard down the straight in the Melbourne Cup and still be at the finish. And he was actually taking ground off the leader. No disrespect to the leader, but the second horse was ginormous.
Well, we can't disrespect the leader because from another niggly draw, it's an incredible ride by Joe McNeil. And look, her plans come to fruition. They've run the race perfectly. He's won the race. He's got there, and they knew the horse they had. They knew what needed to happen. So look, I really respect when a plan comes to fruition. Just reading the stuff today about what Joseph kind of understood about the horse and the way he kind of conveyed that to Joe McNeil, who actually does pick up the ride this weekend on Melody Bell. So, jockeys in form and confidence can do funny things, can't it?
Snowball effect and borders being closed, obviously. The horse is 8 years old, which would suggest they've found a way to trick it into keeping it happy. And it's obviously a sound, happy horse.
Yeah.
And that's half the battle. So, look, Very Elegant was really good. I'm not sure she's a Melbourne Cup horse for next year. I'm not even sure what they'll do with her, but she can win a stack of money over the autumn back on the wetter tracks in Sydney where those sort of horses won't be there. Yeah. Obviously, the heartbreaking part out of the race was Anthony Van Dyke. It's not heartbreaking like someone you love getting cancer heartbreaking. Let's not get carried away. It's an animal that died, but it's still really, really tough to see. He's a wonderful animal. He's an English Derby winner.
You feel for connections, don't you?
He is, and it's brutally hard on the image of racing. Now, the reality of it is that we'll hold several 3,200 metre races in this country this season and nothing will happen. Auckland Cup, Wellington Cup, New Zealand Cup, and the older horses will go around and almost certainly none of them will break down. So it's not the distance factor. But it's such a public display of something bad happening that Racing Victoria they have no choice. They have to open an inquiry and an independent inquiry into why this keeps happening in the Melbourne Cup. Now, there may be no answer to that. I'm not saying there is. But for the public image, they've got to do that, And what they've got to do is get an independent person, an ex-judge would be ideal, somebody like that, to lead an inquiry into whether Werribee, the quarantine centre there, is up to grabs. And I'm not saying it's not, because the winner and the second horse and the third horse all went through the same quarantine. So, but they've got to do that because otherwise the image is really bad. They've got to be seen to doing something. It is a horrible, horrible thing to see when a great horse like that happens to that horse. But we know, the people watching this, that's not what racing is about. But there's going to be an element of society who hate racing for that. And this is really important, because I had someone from NZTR ring me the other day and was talking about how these people are do-gooders and stuff. That's bullshit. People who don't like racing because they see horses break down aren't do-gooders, they're not tree huggers, and they shouldn't be insulted. And anybody who does that doesn't have a place in this conversation. I've thought about this a lot. If somebody's disgusted by an animal dying on a racetrack, they have every right to be, and so they should be, because it shouldn't happen. There's nothing we can do about that. There's going to be a small percentage where it does happen. But people have the right to be disgusted by that, and just as other people have the right to be disgusted by dogs and cats being put down, and people who are vegetarians being disgusted by meat. But us yelling at them and calling them tree huggers and do-gooders is disgusting. It's showing you don't understand your place in society. We need to educate people and say, look, this is really bad, and we're trying to find ways around this, but it's actually a really, 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 really tiny part of life. But just yelling at them doesn't do the job, because that's what they want to do. They want to come to the races and yell, and there'll be some at Cup Week in Christchurch down next week for sure. But we don't have the right until any horses stop dying, which is impossible to happen because it's Mother Nature sometimes.
Yeah.
We don't have the right to abuse those people, and anybody in racing who tries to do that should shut up.
Very, very well said, because we experienced this only a couple of weeks ago. Luke wrote an opinion piece, a column, about how the jumps racing had made him feel squeamish. And it was after the golf incident, and then a long time thinking about this. This was his opinion. Jumps racing is making him feel uncomfortable. He didn't like the rate. And the kind of small part of the community that came out and got quite aggressively, and not even good conversation, not even good argument, not even making good points, just saying, shut up, just stick to punting, we don't talk about this. You do more harm than good by acting like that defensive kind of closed-minded nature. We just need to be mature enough to realise that this was the 7th horse in 8 races, and 8 Melbourne Cups that's unfortunately had to be euthanised. It's reality. We have to front foot it. Racing Victoria, I know, will, because they have no choice, as you pointed out. They have no choice. This isn't for me. This isn't a question. This is an argument. They have to front foot this. There has to be an inquiry, because at some stage, an animal, a beast that we all loved and that had a long career ahead of itself has died. And I completely agree. I think there's a conversation.
We don't get to be Donald Trump and just yell fake news every time we don't like something.
No.
We hear. So look, it's nothing to do with us in New Zealand. So we need to say, hey, by the way, these are the numbers, and if you want to come to the races and you want to come see our retired racehorses and you want to talk to some of these people, you can. But the second you start going like this at people, you've lost the argument. You divide the room. So I think it's really important you engage in the conversation rather than just yelling at people and calling them tree huggers, because if there wasn't tree huggers 100 years ago, there'd be no conservation now, and our planet would be shit. So just because you don't like something doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah. And I think 95% of people understand that, and it's always the small minority or the vocal minority that can kind of frustrate you. It does happen. We'll move on anyway. Look, there'll be smarter people than us that'll work out whether it's
great news is going to be bad news, and that's just part of life.
Where there are good days on the punt, they're going to be yesterday's on the punt.
There's plenty of people go for a jog and die. There's people who die playing golf. No one's going to outlaw golf. So these things happen. It's part of life. A guy nearly died playing golf at the races, which is an entirely different story altogether. But these things happen. So it's part of life, and we need to tell people that and keep reaffirming that, because, as I said, once we start a he shed, she shed, particularly with the Greens having a voice in government now, it's a conversation you're not going to win. Or it's not going to do you any good to win.
I agree, Mick. Let's get out of here.
You're listening to the No Last Race podcast. Thanks to Te Akau, the 5-time Karaka Million winning team.
See, he's so good. He's got trainers on the phone. He's trying to get us oil right as he goes. He's absolutely scheming out here to make us a buck because he knows that we had a sore day yesterday. And so is Jamie Richards. Te Akau's treasures, you're going to want to hang around for that because he's got a couple of babies for us that we're going to want to watch, and I've got a feeling they're going to win a race. You just mentioned government. Grant Robertson. Now, when we did our little politician series, we spoke to Guerin McAnulty, who we kind of asked and we said, do you guys reckon that Guerin might be leaning towards racing minister? And they were happy enough to say, yeah, look, we think he might be, so he's going to do the talking. When you got your comment from the different political parties for the Herald, yep, I noticed that Grant Robertson took the mantle, and it made me think he's got a keen interest in sport. He understands purse strings better than anyone else in the Labour Party, and ipso facto, the Honourable Grant Robertson is the new Minister for Racing. What's your gut? Is he going to be good? Does he care? Because it's hard to know.
I don't know him, but it's important you have a seat at the big table. Now, Guerin McAnulty, I don't know, but I know he's a former bookmaker and he sounds like a good fella. So I would have been happy to see him get the role, but he's not in Cabinet and wouldn't have got in Cabinet just for being the Minister for Racing.
No.
So then you haven't got a seat at the table and you would rather have a Minister in Cabinet. I'm sure Grant will use Guerin's expertise to rely on.
Of course.
If someone said to me, you can have the Deputy Prime Minister who's in charge of the purse strings being in charge of racing, yes, I would take that every day of the week. But also, I don't think we can expect too much from the government in the next 3 years. I mean, we've already been given $72.5 million. Grant's now going to be responsible for yay or naying the 3 independent people who are put up for the TAB board. That's really crucial.
Very crucial.
There's one from each code, and the people who get on there, a bit like the Supreme Court, they'll get to make decisions which will affect racing. There's a new CEO coming for the TAB. I think that decision is as good as made, and that will be announced in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
So really big transition there. But Grant's going to have that responsibility. I don't imagine he's going to have too much in the way of policy, unless they look at an IAG, an IGA, which they're going to look at whether we can gamble offshore. That's going to come down to Grant Robertson and lots of other, advice he'll take from that. That's going to be crucial. And tax relief is going to be hard to get any more of that.
Do you get the feeling that the codes are desperate for a partnership?
With a JV?
With an offshore
like
bookie?
Tabcorp.
Yeah.
I think what the codes want's largely irrelevant because they can't, unless they go with the united approach and all 3 people who get on the TAB New Zealand board vote the same way.
Well,
the codes have never worked together before, so I don't imagine they're going to do it now. Galloping always works for itself, always, and the other 2 codes just fend for themselves. That's
a very good way to put it.
That's how it works. So, the problem with a joint venture is this. You've got to undo the open bet relationship, which is a really complicated relationship in the first place. Then you've got to say to yourself, if you're outsourcing your racing license, and I don't want to bore people with this shit, but it's complicated stuff. I think about it every day. Say you're outsourcing your racing license, but you think it's worth X. Well, are we selling a shabby house? A house that needs to be built up? Or do we run this product for 2 years? Do we close the borders to gambling, which a lot of people listening to this will not like, but will be good for New Zealand racing, and therefore our racing licence is worth more. So we say to Tabcorp or Sportsbet, what do you want to do? The other thing is too, these places, Sportsbet's made money during the COVID, and Tab's lost money. So they're going to start fighting over the Victorian racing licence, which comes up for renewal in 2022.
Right.
So that fight's more important than the New Zealand.
Definitely,
So there's a lot of things in play here. We need to get our house right first before we start talking about joint venturing. Otherwise, we're going to sell the property when it's still shabby.
And to circle it back, I don't know how much. My initial reaction was, oh, great, Deputy Prime Minister Grant Robertson, who is a good guy and really does care. He's a passionate fella. He enjoys things. How much time and energy he has for a racing industry that I don't know, to the best of my knowledge, he has no prior connection with. It's not like he was a bookmaker and understands the industry inherently.
They've done most of what they wanted to do. They've changed the governance, and now it's up to racing to take care of its own ship.
And Winston was telling us that, to be fair. That's exactly right. They have done.
Hope is you just don't get shafted. And there's no reason to think he's going to shaft racing.
No.
So, but you hope that you don't get shafted, and then if you can't take care of your own ship with a monopoly, which could well be in play in a couple of years, well, then you don't know what you're doing.
Okay. I've just looked at the market here because we're going to do a hell of a race very shortly. We're going to get into the Guineas, and we've got a tasty morsel in the form of literal food from Hell Pizza to kind of entice people like myself, one of the 900 people that kind of had a little bit of a butt kicking yesterday. They might be able to eat a pizza and feel a bit better about life. Do you binge eat? Do you like when you're sad? Do you eat chocolate? Hungover?
I'm actually drinking light beer for the entirety of Cup Week because it's such an easy time to get carried away, but Cup Week is very much a stamina test. So I drink light beer. I want to have a couple of shots of tequila if I need to get the looseness in my head.
Are you going to get the 300? Surely your season's stayer by now. Sorry, the 3,200? You're going to...
I don't drink at the races, so I'm lucky. Like, I'll go to Riccarton and I won't have a drink, which is a big advantage because if you start jarring up at Addington, they've got 13 races at Addington on Tuesday. If you start jarring up at 11:55 when they go on the first on the card... 11:55?
I think if you were expecting people to wait till 11:55...
There's a good chance you're not going to be looking too good when they run the Trotting Cup about 5:30.
All right, okay. The Mackinnon Stakes over at Flemington, it kind of closes. This is a great race. I always love this race because it kind of closes things. It kind of feels like the Melbourne spring is kind of coming to an end, right? It's a good race, and Armoury, was the European horse that was leading this market. Came out on Sunday, the news came out. If you were listening to Clayto's show live, you would have heard me say, lads, lasses, go have a look, because if you want to have a bet on either Arcadia Queen or Melody Bell, if they're the horses you like, or anything, you're getting enhanced odds right now. The market's open today, and at the New Zealand TAB, Arcadia Queen is probably unsurprisingly, well, actually, maybe it'd be surprising, taking quite a lot of betting as we speak into $3. Melody Bell, a slight drift to $4.80, $1.75. The whole unfinished business kind of tagline for Melody Bell over in Flemington, 2,000 metre race. We watched her do what she could do here down in Hastings. What does your gut say about sending her back here and how competitive she's going to be in this race?
Well, they picked the right race. The Mackinnon's $2 million worth of semi-low-hanging fruit. I mean, most of the horses, good horses, at this distance race in the Cox Plate. So Arcadia Queen's a hell of a horse. Big, strong, powerful horse. I think on a firm track she can win. If it gets any rain, it really helps Melody Bell.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great move to send it back. Great move because she's racing for 10 times what she would race for in the Zabeel or 5 times what she'd race for in the Hoover
Literally, yeah.
So by all means go back. John McNeil's a good move because he's in the zone quite clearly. But I would go Arcadia Queen on top, but I haven't given a great deal of thought to the race. A lot's going to depend on the tempo. They're both very strong to the line mares, but Arcadia Queen...
5 and 6 gates, so Melody Bell just one outside Arcadia Queen, so they'll both get a chance.
And I don't see either of them sitting up outside the speed, so I don't think it matters too much. A lot of it depends on who chooses to take whose ass, gets just park up behind them. So, but I'll go Arcadia Queen to beat Melody Bell, but I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, hey, look, me too. And if you got the enhanced odds the other day, so you're getting...
Back when we started doing these podcasts, as I said to people, information's power.
Yeah.
If you're willing to follow the right websites, and rather than looking at chicks on Instagram, you're willing to follow the shit on Twitter.
You can do a bit of both.
You can do both. But if you're willing to do that, if you win money, you're probably more likely to get the chicks on Instagram.
And look, this is just by chance me being on a Sunday morning helping Clayto do his show, so refreshing racing Twitter. But I don't expect people... well, you would be, wouldn't you? That's what you do, don't you?
Not on Sunday morning. I hate Sunday morning.
Because you're hungover. You're eating hell pizza.
Yeah. But yeah, it's that information's incredibly powerful because people last week could have backed both of these horses at $7.
That's right.
Have you $200 on them both? You
That's
spent
right.
$400 and basically having $400 at each of 3.5.
And they do look the clear chances. There's some other good horses. There's some reasonable horses in this race. It's not a huge field. The purse is massive. I'm excited.
Is it $2 million or $3 million?
It is a 217, so nearly 22. It's
you're on the New Zealand TRB website. Okay, so they converted it across. It's $2 million Australian.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah, 2 million Australian. Yeah, that would be weird, wouldn't it? 2 minutes. So that's 7:00 on Saturday night. It's going to be an awesome
that seems
day.
a long way away.
Honestly, the spring is just drifting. All right, so we've still got our Te Akau treasures coming up. Melody Bell is not one of them, but if you want to have a bet, I don't think either of us would kind of
By the
cash
way,
straight
with the
for you.
Hell's Pizza thing coming up, they're giving away 20 pizzas.
Let's do it. Hold on.
Sick.
Wait there.
No last race. It's Mick's hell of a race with Hell Pizza.
And you can actually, they haven't given us pizza today, so if you want to kind of get on there and when this video plays out, have a little comment. What we're doing is this week's hell of the race is the 2,000 Guineas down at Riccarton. Awesome race. It's a cool race, isn't it? We like it. It's
2,000 Guineas. Oh,
yeah.
it's one of the best races in the country.
It is. It's one
of the races where you legitimately see a very, very good horse every year.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It can usually, you watch this race and you go back through the history and
it's the only thing we've got close to being a stallion-making race. If you win the 2,000 Guineas, you'll at least stand in stud somewhere. Maybe in the South Island, you'll stand somewhere. Embellish won the 2,000 Guineas, he gets to stand at Cambridge Stud. It gives you a hope in life, which no other race in the country does, more or less, unless you're a 3-year-old colt who wins the Telegraph, maybe.
Yeah, right. Hope in life is a bit good. That might be a bit dramatic, but
Well,
it
seriously,
gives you a head start at least.
For most of the horses who win Group 1s in New Zealand, there's no stallion career.
No, you have to go. You still have to go to Australia and pick up. Of
course you do.
But the market is out. It's an awesome race, as we said. So this is our hell of a race today. Hal Pizza have said this week what we want to do is we want the people watching this, our Boys Get Paid listeners, to comment who they think is going to win this race. So we're going to get Mick's appraisal of this race. So we're going to get your take on it, who the chances are, who you would take. People have a listen, then let us know who you like. Comment away, and we've got 20 double pizzas from Hal Pizza.
What's a double pizza?
I think it's just a big one.
Oh.
I don't think it's like.
Why did you just say big pizza?
Because that's what it's called, and they're sponsors, so you're just going to do what we're told.
Okay.
20
big pizzas.
We don't bite the hand that feeds us.
No. That's a pun.
Yeah.
It's good for you. For Wednesday.
So I'm trying to hung over Wednesday too. So we're going to go through this now. Comment who you think's going to win, and I'll pick 20 people. But here's the thing: we've got 20 pizzas to give away. So, for example, and no offense, but if Lord Ardmore for Stephen McKee wins at $26, and there's only one person in the comments
they
that
get 20 pizzas.
they get 20 pizzas,
20 big pizzas.
So use your imagination. But if you genuinely think Need I Say More, Aegon or Bourbon is
if you're
going to win
smart,
it,
you'll go through the comments, look at them all, pick out the horse no one else has picked, and then put that in there. Because then you're a chance of winning 20 pizzas.
but what if you just want one and you don't think that horse is going to win?
Well, if you're going to have one pizza, you might as well have 20. Chuck them in the freezer.
Okay, Mick. If you were going to take, if you wanted just one pizza,
Yeah.
talk to me about this race.
I think it's a good race
Say
with two major winning chances, and they're enormously advanced, as the market would suggest on the other two. Need I Say More was a very good horse, but I have two issues with him.
Okay.
Wide draw doesn't help. He may have to work early. Yes, Opie's a genius, and I think he'll probably make his way to the rail. So I don't think it's an issue as in regard to where he'll end up. I just think how much petrol you're going to burn to get there. And he's by no name never. So he's a sprinting stallion. I don't love that breed as a 1,600-metre horse. I'm not saying it matters because in a Guineas often you can get away with it. But I don't think he's an archetypical this will win the Guineas type horse.
He's not a miler per se.
No, and Riccarton's a brutal mile. So he's favourite and probably deserves to be because of such a strike rate. Jamie's flying, Opie looks like he's dialed in again, which is good. But I'm going to back Aegon, not at the 340, just for the pizza bet, because I reckon it's good that Leith's on him. Andrew Forsman told me the horse galloped really well the other day. They're very happy with where he's at. I consider him seeing off a speed which will be okay.
From 4.
Yep. He should sit 3 pairs back or something like that and be able to keep his nose clean, and I think he'll be able to wind up pretty well from what I saw at Hawke's Bay. I'm not saying he'll just turn up and win. He's not a big bet horse for me, but I don't think there's that many chances in the race. I think there's a Bourbon is a really nice horse, and Rocket Spade's a really nice horse, and they could win, but I don't see them having shown me anything so far that the other two have shown me, which is winning all the lead-up races.
Can I ask you about the market here then? Because Need I Say More, $2.90 at time of recording, is pretty similar to what the futures was. Drawn 10. I don't know how short would it have got it if it had Aegon's draw at 4?
They can afford to put him at that because you've got Opie and Te Akau. So they know that money will come for Opie and money will come for Jamie. That will come. People love backing horses, and the horse won last time. So people go, well, back that and it's won. Mm-hmm. So there's a good chance money will come for that horse because it sits beautifully in the slot. So they can afford to put it slightly underpriced, and they might be able to sell it somewhere between 260 and 360, depending on what happens with Aegon, because there's not many other horses in this race people are going to back to win. Most people, even as good as Bourbon has been, or Rocket Spade's been a bit hyped, no one's going to go, it's going to beat these other two. So you've got two of the biggest stables in the country, two top-class senior Group 1 winning riders who know what they're doing. By the time you start having this conversation, it's a long way down the conversation to go, I'm backing Bourbon. So I'm not saying it won't win, but it might start $10. Well, what have they got Bourbon up on opening?
Bourbonaire's opened at $6.50. Sam Weatherly gets the ride because Danielle is suspended.
So he might end up $10. So if he ends up $10 because the money comes to the other two, that's where the percentage gets back into the market. So the bookies can afford to underprice Te Akau horses, as they tend to do, because people keep jumping on them. But also, don't forget, Te Akau is also a syndication company, which means a lot of the people from the syndicates just back Te Akau horses.
Back their own horses.
So I think Aegon's got a really good chance of beating. I think the tempo between the 1,000 and the 400 is really crucial. If they cruise around the bend and Need I Say More can kick off the bend, then he's got some sort of hope. But I am slightly doubtful about him over the 1,600.
So Agon's racing pattern, only 2 starts, but both flashed home. And I remember Matt Cameron said, he rode him the first time and said, no, I can't remember, I think he might have said, I don't want to quote him now, but he might have said to me that the last horse that he felt do that in his first start was Burgundy or something. It was something crazy. Like he was very impressed. And then watching him at Hawke's Bay there swoop, so he didn't go to the Sarton because he's a lighter framed horse, and I don't think they thought that they needed to rush him. The market suggests, Andrew's comments to you suggest that they're really happy.
Really well on the plough last week at Cambridge. They're happy with where he's at, and most importantly, he's a light-framed horse, but they all flew down. You wouldn't want to be roading a horse like him that loses 10 kilos, you can't get it back on them. Yep. They've all flown down, or they are flying down tomorrow, so that's crucial. So I'm not saying he's going to turn up and win, but I think he profiles pretty well for what a 2,000 giddy horse should be at the stage, even though you'd like to see extra 20 kilos on him. It probably won't bother him on Saturday.
Awesome stuff. There you go. That's the 2,000 guineas. That's our hell of a race. Mick's going with Agon, not for a bet, but for the pizza bet. So get us in the comments. Get a little creative.
Put it this way: if he gets out to $4, I'll back him. But that would mean the money and the Betfair and the algorithms for the professional punters all striking on. Need I say more? Now the algorithms for Agon are pretty good. Strike rate's good. Leith's riding well. So there's enough there that.
Could you see some money come for Rocket Spade at 8?
No, there'll be no money for anything else.
There you go.
But they just don't profile the way algorithms work. Algorithms work on the trainer's strike rate, the jockey's strike rate, and the horse's strike rate.
So, yeah, there you go. That makes sense. So we need to know, really. That makes sense. So get in the comments. Look, if somebody wants to have a little nibble at Mr. Reliable, and you're the only Mr. Reliable.
You could win 20 pizzas.
At Grills, he pulls one on us, and Mr. Reliable gets up.
Although if you want 20 pizzas that bad, you could probably put $10 to win a Mr. Reliable, and you could buy 20 pizzas.
But Hell Pizza are looking after us.
Thank you, Hell.
It's hell of a race.
I expect to be there sometime next week.
No last race. It's Mick's hell of a race with Hell Pizza.
It is Mick's hell of a race with Hell Pizza, and look, that's good of them to be looking after us. We're going to do Te Akau's treasures because I've been promising them, and I'm speaking of algorithms and money coming and bookies opening. Te Akau's horses short. I reckon we've got a couple that are probably going to open relatively short, but we're going to get to those in a second.
This filly you're going to see trialling up, it just...
it was nice to watch.
Killing machine it is. It's going to turn up somewhere and
it's going to break some hearts.
Give someone a headache.
Yeah, that's right. I wanted to ask you about harness. You said this is New Zealand Cup week. This is.
It's a monster day. On Tuesday, it's a monster day.
What is New Zealand? Is New Zealand Cup Day to you like Christmas? Is it like do you love it or?
It's the only race day of the year I will not sleep as well the night before because I'm excited about what it may hold. But also it's a work performance thing. You're hoping to do a good job. This year I won't sleep well the night before because I'm actually flying to Christchurch at 5:30 in the morning. Yeah. It's a magic day. It's for a long time it was the best race day in New Zealand by a mile. Well better than anything we had at the Gallops. But Karaka Million's come along, and Karaka Million's a magical night. So I think the two are on a par as experiences.
100%.
But there's only 12,500 people going this year, not the 18 or 20 they might sometimes get. It's a hell of a huge day, 13 races. The New Zealand Cup is one of about 6 world-class races we hold in New Zealand, the New Zealand Galloping Derby being another one, of course. The track's always beautifully done. There's big fields. It tends to be fine. People
the weather
love it.
is just first Tuesday.
It's a mint experience as a racing. If you've never been, it's it and Karaka are the 2 bucket list events.
It's one of the best things about Christchurch.
Oh, it's the only good thing about Christchurch.
Hey.
All jokes aside, I love Christchurch. I've been down that way, but they do Cup Week so well. They've tried to replicate it in Auckland. It doesn't even scratch the surface. Yeah. So it's a magical week. It's going to be a lot of fun next week to see what we can all get up to. But New Zealand Cup Day, if I was going to give you one tip, if you're having a punt, is bet. Get your bets done. We're having a massive preview show on Trackside on Monday night. Yep. And you can get it online at hrnz.co.nz called The Box Seat. And it's no bullshit. We'll give you the absolute best. If you want to watch it, if you can be screwed watching me again for another hour, watch it, bet, and then go to the races and get on the jar if you're going to do that. Because New Zealand Cup Day's chaos.
Carnage.
Betting at the races is total nonsense. You'll start looking at some girl, you'll forget you're there, and you'll make a nonsense of yourself and you'll miss your bet. So put your bets on beforehand. Get them on your phone. Because also the phone coverage often can be a bit icky. So just put your bets on and go enjoy the day.
I've just tried to find the market. I'm just having a bit of trouble finding it. But
The draw only came in a few minutes ago.
Oh, right.
Copy that, Drew Barrier 1.
Is that what you were looking on your phone?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, I wasn't on Tinder or Grindr.
Oh, no, Amanda would be pretty upset either way. So
depending which way you like to go with these things. No, I was just watching the market. Copy that, Drew 1. Self-assured, put it back in the barrier, draw from the unruly, comes into barrier 8 with the scratchings coming out. Spank him drew the second line.
So who wins there?
Depends on who steps away the best. If Copy That steps to dominate the race, I reckon he'll win. But Self-Assured's a very good horse. Barrier 8's probably okay, but he's been missing a lot lately.
So just explain this to us, uninitiated. Coming off the unruly for Self-Assured means that he goes back into the line with the rest of the horses and he has to behave himself.
Yes. And also that means he's going to have 7 horses inside him and 2 horses outside him. And if one of them gets annoyed or there's no mares in the race, but if one of them isn't see, all that sort of shit comes into play. So he can get annoyed. He can be quite claustrophobic. But at least it means if he steps, he can step quickly, as he did
get out of the way,
Cup, and be fine. If he's out the back, no matter how quickly he steps, he can't get around them. So he could be dictated to by Copy That. Copy That's a pretty good horse, and was a very good horse. And he's got barrier 1, and if he steps away quickly or quickly enough to stay in front of Self-Assured, that's tactical advantage in the race.
What is the it's 3,200 metre race, isn't it? It's 2 miles. So what's the pattern in a New Zealand Trotting Cup usually like? Do you see many horses coming flashing and scoring late, or do you usually see them leading and dictating?
Tira to Love did that. Very few did. Cruz Bromac did last year, but he didn't flash from last. He flashed from 3 back on the markers. What you'll find is the better horses will work their way forward before the post the last time. So most of them won't sit. They'll work their way into the race. The Perd and Rasmussen horses will work because they're superior to the other horses most of the time. But they're not physically superior to Copy That. So if Copy That's there, he won't be there to be bullied. So that's a crucial factor for him. So a Classy Brigade's an interesting horse. I haven't seen where he's drawn. I'm just going to look at it on my phone.
Won the Te Akau Cup, right?
Yep, exactly. And a Classy Brigade, now that's crucial. Classy Brigade, who is a horse who was likely to lead and therefore would have who would hand up to in the race, crucial. It's drawn the second line. Just seeing it now. It's drawn barrier 18, starts from 15. That's massive. That's a massive, massive difference because then it means of the 2 horses who could potentially step to the lead, of the favourites, because the rest of them will get out of the way.
Yeah.
They just will. There's Self-Assured and then there's Copy That. So whichever one of those leads first will be staying in front.
Wow.
And that could be the whole cookie jar.
Would you give Copy That favouritism just?
Over that, yeah. Copy That deserves to be favourite for the race now.
Is this a vintage year? Is this good? I
think there are 2 very good horses. Mankin's a very good horse. He won a Miracle Mile and he ran second in this race last year. There's 3 good horses. Classy Brigade's a warrior. If you follow the gallops, think Saint Emilion type horse, one of those. And then there's a really nice bunch of horses in behind them. But if Copy That or Self-Assured, if one of them leads, then the only danger to beat them will be the other one sitting in the trail behind it, more or less type thing. It's a little bit like the Guineas. Aegon and Need I Say More stand out so much. You've got a big gap back to the rest of them now, particularly after that barrier draw.
Excellent stuff.
It's the No Last Race podcast with Mick and Louie, brought to you by Te Akau, New Zealand's champion racing stable.
All right, Mick. Te Akau's Treasures. This is what we're going to wrap the show up with because we have kept them waiting. Jamie has come through with the goods. He's
Which one's first? Is it the 2-year-old?
He's 3 from 3. This is the 2-year-old. This looks like it's Ellerslie to me.
Yep.
So
this is the 2-year-old. So like typical Te Akau 2-year-old. So push the button on this and that is push button. Right?
Quattro Quinta 2-year-old bag gelding by Darcy Brahma.
Yeah, so he's obviously in the Te Akau colours. He's 3rd there. So typical Te Akau horses. They tend to jump. They get out of the gates. They do everything right. They travel one under the rider. They don't need their ears scrubbed off because they've worked with good 2-year-olds at home. So here it is. It's sitting outside the second horse. It's got a target. At the top of the straight, it's got a target to look at. Now, this week at Te Rapa, it's in the first on the card. It's actually got barrier 9. It'll start from barrier 8 because we're scratching our horses in the race. We had a horse in the race we're going to take out.
You're running scared.
No, we want to go to the trials because there's no point starting from barrier 8.
Kidding, mate.
Yeah, no, actually, look, this is a pretty good horse, though. Like, when you look at the rest of them behind, so he's got to the leader, he's got the, and he's in front now, and there's no need to sort of, to stretch him out too much. He's won pretty easily. Now, does he look like a horse who's going to go a long way in life? I don't know. But he looks like a horse who's going to win at Te Rapa on Saturday.
No Last Race with Te Akau. It's easy and affordable to be involved in New Zealand's champion stable.
All right, full disclosure, guys. Somebody has dinged Mick's Aston Martin in the car park and he's gone down to chase them. Kidding. No, it's not really what's happened. We've had a little technical glitch here, so we've just wrapped up with our Te Akau treasures. That was a beautiful 2-year-old effort there by Quattro Quinta, and that was Jamie's one for the week to follow. So that's in the first at Te Rapa. He's also given us a 3-year-old Savabeel filly that I think starting on Sunday. So look, we'll catch up. We'll give you that information shortly. As I said, a little bit of a technical glitch, so we are done with today's podcast a little bit abruptly. So sorry about that. These things do happen. Anyway, it's been a great show. We've covered a lot. That's what Mick just said as he was leaving, chasing the guy who dinged his Aston Martin. Don't think that actually did happen, just to reconfirm. We covered a lot. Grant Robson, the new racing minister. Honestly, yesterday's Melbourne Cup day was a big, long day. Deflating maybe, but we'll be back. We got the Guineas this week. Remember Hell Pizza want to give away 20 pizzas, so we want someone to get involved there. There's going to be good punting. It's Guineas Day, but there's also the Mackinnon Stakes and Melody Bell unfinished business for her, our queen of the turf over there. So I'll be watching that with interest. There's a lot going on as we amble into the New Zealand Trotting Cup on Tuesday, and then it really kicks off. And we're going to get an awesome Boys Get Paid crew down there for the week in Christchurch. We're going to get to the dogs, hopefully. We'll get to the harness. We'll get to the gallops. We'll do the tri-code. It'll be a trifecta of sorts. Hopefully everybody is in good spirits. As I said, thanks to Te Akau for looking after us. They do an awesome job, and we appreciate their time and effort. So hopefully you guys have a collect on Te Akau's treasures. Jamie, once again, he's 3 from 3, so he'll be looking to keep that up. Thanks to Hell Pizza. Thanks to you guys for listening. Thanks to Mick for being here. Thanks to Toby for recording. And we'll be back with another No Last Race in no time at all. Cheers.